Oh, yeah, it's time. Time for your Door to More, presented by DoorDash, talking 49ers, Seahawks. Interesting timing for this game on Thursday night. I'm going to miss it. I'm at least going to miss the TNF recap.
Timing?
No. That both teams, I think, are coming off of humbling losses. Losses that make you question your team inside the building, that maybe we aren't as good as we thought we were. Now they're facing each other. 3-2 Seahawks, 2-3 49ers. We could have a situation, Jordan, where there's not a team in the NFC West with a winning record after week 6, which is pretty surprising for what we thought was going to be one of the best divisions in football.
Yeah, and it still could be down the stretch. Guys get healthy on a couple of these teams, but this is going to be an interesting game, not just because the stakes feel high in terms of needing to get back on track a little bit, but you can see certain flaws that might not be fixable just by getting people healthy, getting people back in the roster on both sides. 49ers defense looks a little suspect, more suspect than we thought it was going to look. And then on the converse, the pressure, I mean, it's just awful. You could see it start to wear a little bit on Geno, who's having to complete over 55% of his throws under 2.5 seconds or less. He's been playing outstanding football, but how sustainable is this when the tackles are not holding up in a big way?
Sunday was crazy. His time to throw was like 2.3 in that game. He's like Aaron Rodgers out there. They're both just getting rid of the ball so quickly. But Geno's not doing it because like he doesn't want to get hit. In fact, he's running better than ever. He's one of the most rushing values in terms of EPA and QBR in the league. But
he's doing it to try to make positive plays happen.
Right.
Because there's nothing else they can do. Because the pressure, the outsides especially, the interior is giving up. Some, I think it's like 38 pressure, something like that. But the exterior is now what really, at least you thought, Charles Cross was going to hold up. But both of those tackles are really struggling right now.
They are. And I mean, to your point, Greg, the losses that they're coming off of, I mean, I was so surprised that the Seahawks lost to the Giants and that the Giants looked as good as they did. So the Niners, though, too, I mean, blowing that lead, now they're 0-2 in the NFC West. They're 0-3 in the NFC. All of this is going to factor into a potential tiebreaker at the end of the season. So this game is so massive. It's almost like who is more desperate, and it shouldn't be this high of stakes this early in the season, but it actually is. And the Niners are having massive red zone issues without Christian McCaffrey. They can't figure that out. 6 red zone trips, only 1 touchdown. They were the best in the league last year in red zone efficiency. So there's just a lot of issues on both teams that they need to figure out on a short week with a lot of injuries.
And they can't even rely necessarily on their field goal unit at this point, even if they do struggle in the red zone, because Jake Moody has got a high ankle sprain and they had to go sign Matthew Wright because they were in sort of a sudden change who is kicking the ball for us situation in the last game. So even with the red zone, you can't be certain that they'll come away with points at all in that situation.
Right. And the Seahawks probably look at the 49ers, if they're being honest, and say, hey, actually, this is a team that we should be able to protect Geno Smith against. Yeah, they have Nick Bosa, but hopefully, Charles Cross can help there, and you chip him when he's on the other side. But other than that, it's pretty thin in terms of the 49ers pass rush. And they had that one week where you play the Patriots, and everyone feels good about their pass rush after they play the Patriots, and then it's a comeback down to earth game. They're a little banged up there, but they also lost Yetur Gross-Matos, who is playing at defensive tackle. I didn't think they were as deep as they could have been to begin with, and then they've had injuries on top of that. So it's not the 49ers defense that that in theory you love. The Seahawks would love to run the ball, I think, a little bit more and better. They are number 1 in the league the last month in terms of neutral passing rate, which means on normal down and distance, they're just passing the ball all the time. You would like to see Kenneth Walker get involved, but it's partly because they don't trust their run blocking that much. I came away from these 2 games a little stunned. Like if you just watched it on RedZone a little bit, or you saw how the 49ers blew a lead, or it was the field goal block in Seattle, and you think, okay, well that sort of thing happens. It's like, no, the Giants could have won that game by 20. They dominated in both trenches. They were the better team by a good amount. And the Cardinals were similar. I think the Cardinals were a better team that day, who had some bad luck on a return touchdown, and they still found a way to win. That they kind of got physically manhandled. You just don't normally see that with the 49ers.
The Giants ran all over the Seahawks in this game, 175 rushing yards, where at the Giants, they were averaging about 85 rushing yards per game coming into this. They also didn't have Devin Singletary, so it was Tyrone Tracy who had 129 rushing yards on 18 carries. Like, he went off.
Yeah, if there's one coach who I know is going to just hunker down and run the ball at somebody, it's going to be Kyle Shanahan.
Yep.
Mike McDonald's had to stand up there at the lectern and talk about unsound technical work and fundamentals and gap accountability in the run game almost every single week. Now, this was a defense that was supposed to make that area one of its strong points.
I look at their linebackers, and it's a problem. They got cooked by Brian Dable. Brian Dable came in there and was like, hey, you guys are on a short week. We've had a little extra time from Thursday Night Football, and he handed it to Mike McDonald. It kind of reminded me of the game that helped get Mike McDonald this job, Mike McDonald versus the 49ers, when it was Ravens, 49ers on Christmas
Day.
I can't forget it because I was here, and that matchup is what partly got Mike McDonald this job. Can he be the Shanahan killer? Can he be the McVay killer? Like, we'll see when he plays the Rams this year, but that to me is fascinating. He does not have the players at linebacker that he had when he was with Baltimore. No one really does, or that the 49ers do, frankly, with Fred Warner. And so he's having to adjust, and they were a big-time problem in the running game and the passing game last week.
The Seahawks rushing defense for the 2024 season, they are allowing 4.5 yards per carry and 5 rushing touchdowns so far. And this is going to be a Kyle Shanahan 49ers team that I don't think will have any problem hunkering down and running the ball.
No, Mason's looks awesome. I mean, he had that fumble last week, but
yeah,
he literally has more yards than any 49ers running back in history.
And I remember when that first game that he came in, and I was doing the pregame show for it, and we were like, okay, well, it's going to be
Found
Jordan
another one.
Mason. And what?
Should we pick it? I don't feel good about the Seahawks right now, but I will pick them because that's what I want to root for.
Really? They have their throwback uniforms, too. Those fun 90s.
So those just need to become their uniforms.
I love them.
I'm going to pick the 49ers because Brock Purdy, I think, overall is playing really well. I think that perhaps you can consider last week more of an outlier game from him than how he has showed up across the season, inclusive to not having a lot of his skill players around him. So I do want to pick the 49ers in this game. It is interesting. You're hearing some reports out of there of he's feeling weird, just a little bit off, lots of moving parts.
Who, Purdy?
Obviously, no, the 49ers building as a whole. Things feeling a little weird, just generally off in terms of there's just been a lot of moving parts around that building so far, missing players, adding players back, some long-term injuries. So, but I do think that Brock Purdy's going to play better this week.
God, this is such a toss-up, this game. I'm going to go with the Niners right now just because I'm not sure about these Seahawks injuries that they have. Reek Woolen, Uchenna Nwosu, Byron Murphy. I mean, these are significant players that aren't playing right now. And I mean, they put out the estimated practice report today, and that would be a do not practice for them or didn't participate. So it's just, that's going to be the determining factor.
Yeah, they got Nwosu back, who was supposed to be their best pass rusher for less than a full game, and he is now going to injured reserve with a thigh injury, which was a new injury. That it's good that you point that out. Talanea Hufanga is reportedly going to miss about a month or so with a wrist injury. Although his replacements looked really good. I thought Malik Mustafa has made some plays for them, so that's been a nice find.